From the Great Rocky Mountains with photographers from all over the world, you are listening to the Rocky Mountain Photography Show. I'm your host, Jeff Footer, and thank you for listening. This is episode 4. We've got Shauna Hart and Michael Magill with us today, and we're going to be talking a little bit about rodeo photography and wildlife photography. Michael, how are you?
I'm doing outstanding. How are you all?
And Shauna, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Very active in the spring and very excited for birthing and nesting season to be out, especially along the Great Salt Lake with all the migratory birds.
Can you guys tell us a little bit about yourself? So you do rodeo photography, Michael?
Yes, sir. Predominantly rodeo, Western lifestyle, that kind of thing. I rodeoed through college and found a way to continue to scratch that itch at almost 50 now. So,
How about you, Shauna? What kind of photography do you like to do?
So I am mainly into conservation photography. I work with a lot of non-government organizations. I'm on the board of the Utah Wildlife Federation as the board chair, and I try to concentrate on a lot of issues around the northern part of Utah, which is the Great Salt Lake area, and wildlife crossings. Wildlife connectivity is a big passion project of mine.
So what do you do with the Utah Wildlife Federation?
I am the chairman of the board, so right now we're kind of in a growth phase, and we're trying to define specific outlets for attention in partnering with some of the state organizations. Again, wildlife crossing issues. There's a lot of spots in Utah that are high trafficked areas with ungulates, mule deer, moose, etc., that are becoming more well traveled. And so the incidences of wildlife auto accidents is increasing or has increased over the last couple of years. So we're trying to advocate, and we also kind of, our administrator runs the wildlife connectivity group for the state. So we're involved in a lot of those issues. We're also a partner in the Great Salt Lake Sentinel landscape, which I can explain at some point, but it's involving military readiness and conservation essentially for some of the military installations here in northern Utah.
What about you, Michael? What is your passion?
well, so my passion is absolutely in this cowboy lifestyle that we're so blessed to live out here in the West. I tell everybody what made the American cowboy an icon of the world hasn't changed since the 1800s. We just quit talking about them as much. So it's kind of our mission to let the world know that there's still guys that do it the way it was done 100 years ago. And they're the same men. They're hardy men and women. They are, salt of the earth folks, and just kind of tell their story through our photographs is our biggest thing. And rodeo being a big part of that as kind of the culmination of their talents. One place I can photograph a lot of these talents that these guys and gals use every single day. So we do a lot of rodeo. We do a lot of Western lifestyle. We do some portraiture for ranch families and things like that. Their brandings, their gatherings, their parties, their working parties basically. But when everybody comes together and really just helps each other out, we love to capture that kind of thing.
Have you ever been to the Pendleton Roundup in Oregon?
Have not been there. I was fortunate enough 2 years ago to shoot the NFR, the National Finals Rodeo in Vegas, which was kind of a dream come true for sure. Pendleton is definitely on the list, though. That's one we have to get out to.
I'm from Pendleton originally, so
Okay,
had to ask.
yeah. I love the green grass out there.
Absolutely. Are there any tips that you'd like to give or share on rodeo photography or Western life photography?
So rodeo photography is it's kind of a combination of a lifestyle and sports photography. Obviously, during the rodeo, things are moving awful fast. So definitely, what I tell younger folks starting out is you definitely want to stay at least over 1/1000th on your shutter speed. But it can be awful challenging too, because especially in our part of the world, a lot of these through the winter time take place in pretty dark arenas. So you have to get pretty adept at shooting low light, fast moving subjects, which can always be a challenge.
What kind of equipment do you typically use for that?
So I'm currently shooting a Nikon Z9, and then I end up with the low light stuff. I'll end up using a lot of prime lenses that are the Sigma 105 1.4. I shoot quite a bit. The Nikon 135 1.8 Plena has been just a godsend of a lens for that kind of application for sure.
I do mostly, personally, I do mostly nature, landscapes, things like that. And for me, I use a Panasonic Lumix S1R, and that's a great camera for what I do. It's
Right.
not so great for wildlife or anything fast-moving subjects because of the autofocus. The autofocus isn't the best. It's not as bad as most people would think by reading the reviews. It's actually pretty quick and accurate, but it does kind of struggle a little bit with moving subjects, things like that.
Yeah, I
Um,
waited an awful long time before I jumped into the mirrorless on the Nikon frame for the same reason. But I think I've been very, very impressed with the Z9 and its capabilities on the autofocus.
Absolutely. Before I switched to Panasonic, I actually used Sony, and my Sony A7 III was pretty phenomenal with the autofocus. Of course, it was kind of the industry standard at the time that everybody kind of wanted to duplicate. It was definitely good for things like
I know
wildlife.
several folks in the rodeo world that are they're using the Sony platform and loving it. The global shutter they're just falling in love with.
So you've been to the National Finals Rodeo. What other locations have you traveled to?
Oh shoot! Last year we traveled from South Carolina all the way up to the Canadian border in Montana. I mean, this is a nationwide thing. So I tell everybody jokingly, have camera will travel. We'll go wherever they can get us to. But a lot here in Wyoming. We do all the Central Rocky Mountain College circuit as well. So do a lot Colorado, Wyoming, quite a bit in Utah, quite a bit in Nevada. I got back from Fort Worth, Texas, I guess yesterday, and I'm leaving tomorrow morning back for Fort Worth. So lot of windshield time, a lot of driving up and down the road, but it's just like all the other rodeo athletes that's how they make their living. There's a lot of that time up and down the road.
What about you, Shauna? Do you travel a lot?
Occasionally, it just depends on what's going on. When I became chairman of the Wildlife Federation a couple of months ago, I kind of had to commit to slowing down a little bit. I've also got some home renovation projects going, so that kind of keeps me grounded. But where I am in northern Utah, I'm only what 3.5 hours, 3 hours to Jackson, Grand Teton, 3.5, 4.5 to Yellowstone. Um, I shoot a lot at Antelope Island State Park. In fact, I was out there this week. There's Farmington Bay. Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge is where I spend a lot of time. I try to keep my finger on the pulse of conservation issues surrounding that area. Has a rich history, and I do some tours around this area and try to educate people on the importance of the Bear River and the Bear River Delta, where the migratory birds nest and migrate through, because it is the major water feed into the Great Salt Lake. So protecting those areas, working with state and federal agencies to help do that, advocating for that through the legislature and other NGOs with them is kind of what I spend a lot of my time doing. So traveling, yes, recently not so much, but really working. I also work with a non-governmental organization called Save People, Save Wildlife. I'm contributing photographer for them up in Park City. I actually had one of the shots I took up there last year win the Judge's Choice Top 31 for the Nampa photography competition this last fall, and was awarded in December. And we'll be attending their summit in Tucson next month. So yeah, kind of little from A to Z on traveling or going around and trying to assist with wildlife conservation issues.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So I'm in central Wyoming, so I'm kind of in the same boat as far as being able to head up to Yellowstone. It's only about a 3 hour drive for me, so
Right.
that's it's always nice to be so close. I do get a little bit jealous of some of the photographers that live right there in Jackson or Cody or West Yellowstone,
Dude, I'm
Right.
but
jealous of y'all. I'm all the way down here in Cheyenne, so y'all are closer to me.
yep, absolutely. Probably what 8 hours for you.
About right at 8. Yes, sir.
And so, Shauna, what's your favorite kind of bird?
Do you know, I never thought I would really love birds as much as I do. My husband grew up in Preston, Idaho, and is an outdoorsman. And when we first moved back here, oh, quite a few years ago, he said, I think if you want to improve your photography, you ought to work on birds in flight and stuff like that. And I said, nah, I'm not, I don't want to be a birder, quote unquote. But I started to go out to the refuge and started, and he was right. It really did help improve my photography. But in the birding world, they call it a spark bird. I guess I'm in love with cranes, sandhill cranes, whooping cranes. The great blue heron actually is one of the first birds that I studied. This year, my goal is to capture the mating and courting rituals of the avocets and black-necked stilts. Um, the avocets are just coming in and migrating through. The black-necked stilts just actually arrived this week. So they're just kind of a lovely, amazing, beautiful birds. If you get them right in the sunlight here against the waters, of the Great Salt Lake, it makes for some quite stunning photos.
I'm sure it does. So, how long have you both been doing photography, and what got you started?
Well, I'll go ahead and go first. Mine's kind of an interesting story. So I'd always been interested in photography, but never really dove into it as a craft of any kind. In 2014, I had to have a back surgery, and doc said I had to do a lot of walking, and I was bored out of my mind. I'm a prior service Marine, and then 15 years in law enforcement as well. So walking was very boring. So I got a camera so I could go hunt for pretty things, and I found it to be actually extremely therapeutic for me. Once with in law enforcement, no one ever calls you on their best day, and now in photography, everybody calls me on all their best days. So I found it to be very therapeutic to go look for the beautiful things after seeing the not so beautiful things for so many years.
I
Yep.
actually, I'm a daughter of an Air Force officer, so I grew up traveling moving all over the world. Somebody always had a camera in their hand when I was raising my kids. I took all the neighborhood Christmas card photos. So when I went through divorce and remarried, my husband said, current husband said, you need a hobby. And so he bought me a camera and I went back out. And when we moved here, we started hiking and camping, and being in the outdoors so much that there's amazing things you see, right? So my first one-on-one encounter with a bull moose about 7 years ago, 7 or 8, just kind of hooked me. And I started into just wildlife portraiture. I started out kind of landscape and then included wildlife and then ended up wildlife. But I felt after a few years, I there's a million people that can take wildlife, especially with the improving technology, pretty good wildlife portrait shots. But what can I do to make a difference to keep these animals wild? What can I do to give back? I have this theory that when you like something, you want to share it. When you love something, the natural affinity in human behavior and progress, you want to protect it. So, kind of teaching, sharing, and educating. I come from a long line of educators. I kind of veered and developed some relationships to have those outlets. Um, for example, the Utah Wildlife Federation is sponsoring a kids photography camp. We have 3 other great photographers that will be mentors this coming summer. There's currently open registration on our Utah Wildlife Federation website. It's utahwildlifefederation.org. For kids 12 to 18, we have 20 slots. We're trying to keep it at a 4 to 5 mentor to student ratio. Jason, my mind just left me. He is a great photographer. Untamed Wild Images, I think is his website. And Lydia Ripplinger and Jimmy Brettenstein are three of our others. But that's going to run in this June of 2025. So we're very excited about that. If we can connect with the next generations and get them to love and want to protect these areas, the wildlife, the birds, etc., I think it will do us all better in the long run. And as you get older, too, you kind of start looking at your legacy and what have you made a difference? What am I leaving behind? So as I thought about those things, this kind of led me naturally with camera in hand as I've been in the outdoors to kind of end up in the conservation world.
I love photography. And like you said, when you love something, you want to protect it. And I always feel it's kind of threatened right now by AI. How do you two feel about AI and how it's taking over a lot of photography in ways? So if somebody goes to a stock photography website, for example, instead of taking submissions from photographers and selling those, a lot of times somebody can just go type in what they want to look for and have it generate an image. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's absolutely terrifying, and there's nothing we can do about it. So we might as well learn how to embrace it and incorporate it. It's kind of my opinion on it. It's probably how people back in the 40s felt about that moving picture show, and how it was going to ruin everything. I think it's technology can be scary, but as photographers, I don't think it's going anywhere. So we need to figure out how to work with it, and instead of just kind of stomping our feet and being mad about it.
I think he's right. I think every technology that or anything that's new that comes about, you're kind of disrupts, which disruptive technology, your normal mindset and workflow and anything you're doing. It can be used for really, really good things, and it can be used for really, really bad things. As far as photography goes, a perfect example of that has been the conundrum of, do I put a logo or a watermark on my photos when I post them on social media? There's so many ways to get around that, even if you do. But, you know, things are going to happen and you just have to be realistic and place your expectations. I think some of the most amazing creations with photography that I've seen have used AI. So it's opened up a whole new world of beauty, which I never considered. I mean, some of the photographers, I shoot Sony and a member of the Sony Alpha female community, and some of them have used AI in ways to create scenes from basic photographs that I never would have envisioned otherwise. So it's led people to expand their creative toolbox. And then again, they're, like the whole stealing photos. I mean, everybody, if you're online, I think it was the second year I started posting, was active on social media. I found two people who had taken photos and used them and posted them without credit. And one was a company, one was an individual. So everybody's going to run into that at some point. And you just got to be prepared. You got to, place your expectations correctly and figure out how to deal with it eventually.
So yeah, you can just go to watermarkremover.io and it's free. You just upload an image. It'll using AI will remove the watermark, which is kind of terrifying because I've personally have an image that is for sale right now on Amazon as a fine art nature print
Huh.
that I did not sell to anybody. so
Oh,
Interesting.
wow.
so I've actually I contacted them. This was back in 2018, 2019, asking them to remove that, and they did. Here I searched it up, I don't know, 6 months ago or so, and it's back on there. It's
Oh,
kind
Oh,
of
no.
thanks.
frustrating. Somebody else is making money off my photography. I guess I could have listed it on Amazon just as easily, but
Yeah.
it's still, I'm not okay with it.
Yeah.
I had something similar happen with my first cover photo. It was stolen by a publication in Australia. And it wasn't even the high res. It was the one pulled off the internet.
Huh.
So I was like, y'all, if you'd have called me, I'd probably worked it out with you, get you a better picture for you. But
Well, and that, begs the question, how do you post on social media or on the internet? A lot of times I'm disgruntled because I look and my photos aren't as tack sharp as I want them to be. And then I'm like, well, that's okay. Nobody's going to want to steal that one, but you can still get the idea of the photo. So, yeah, I think, and if you keep on top of what's going on in the nuance of development and in the industry, articles, Petapixel's a perfect example of an outlet that um, talks about those kind of things and articles you can read. I think you'll be able to manage it.
I used to copyright my images legally, and I don't know if that helped or not, but at least it's some layer of protection. Unfortunately, now it's so easy to go and remove the metadata even from an image. So all my photos in the metadata I have set up for copyright Jeff Footer photography, but it's extremely simple to go in, just change that to whatever you want and pass it off as your own. The kids photography camp. Do you know the dates in June?
Yes, it will be consecutive Saturdays. So it'll be June 7th, every 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th from 9 to 1. And so it's kind of structured. Lydia Riplinger is has a lot of experience in teaching. So she's helped us create the curriculum. It's hands-on with the basics of photography and then conservation modules in there. So again, on 4 consecutive days, you're not going to get from A to Z, but we'll get these kids started. And then some who have more experience, will help refine, their editing skills and answer questions and give tutoring as far as maybe how to improve the way they shoot, how they shoot, all those kind of things. Jason Loftus is our other one. I couldn't think of his last name, but he is an amazing technical photographer. And so he's going to lend that expertise to teaching on that. My wheelhouse, of course, is conservation and composition, storytelling. So I'll be doing that. But we're really hoping to make a difference and start again kind of a wave. We get 20 kids in this year, maybe we'll get 30 in next year, et cetera, et cetera. But this is not a money-making enterprise. This is something to give back to the community that we can. Starting here in Utah, it's $25 for registration. It just basically covers our administrative fees. And then it runs 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. We'll do some classroom instruction, and then we'll go out in the field. We'll be shooting at Antelope Island State Park, which the classroom location is just outside there, and very excited about it. Very excited about it. It's UtahWildlifeFederation.org, and there should be a link on there. If you look at the tabs at the top, and hopefully we're going to put a button on the front where you can just go and instantly register. But yeah, we'd love anybody and everybody to join us.
So, Michael, like you said, with your um, Western lifestyle photography, you find it therapeutic. That's kind of how I feel about nature photography, and I think it's great for a lot of things like mental health because no matter what I'm worried about, no matter what's on my mind, I've got anxiety, I'm stressed out about something, I go out in the field and I take pictures, and it is therapeutic, like you said. It just relaxes me, and I can get lost in it for hours and hours at a time. Even if I set myself a time limit, I'm going to do this for 20 minutes. I'm going to get my tripod out of the car and go take some pictures. Next thing I know, it's been hours. So
right. I'm guilty of the same thing. So, but I absolutely find it extremely therapeutic, and the connection you get with people. Going back to the AI thing a little bit, I think one thing that AI hasn't figured out how to accurately capture, I'd say, is the emotion. And I think that's what makes a beautiful photograph anyway, when it invokes emotion from the photographer or from the viewer. I don't think AI's figured out the emotional aspect of it, because I don't know if I could explain it, but I know it when I see it. Does that make sense?
Yep,
Well,
absolutely.
it does, and I think he's right. That emotionality, that storytelling
Hey, Shauna,
capability,
you kind of
in one
cut out there.
photo.
Can you
It's
repeat yourself?
Yeah, yes. I was going to say what dovetails into his comment is that that's storytelling capability that one photo has, the emotionality and the story of the photo to touch someone, the viewer that's looking at it. Um, Again, can have connection to the scene, to the action, to the story, that it embodies. So I think that's very important.
I read a lot of photography books, books about how-to kind of books about photography. Um, I don't even know how many I've read. I've probably got 100 of them in boxes. But one thing I read in one of them was that pretty early on, I read that um, you need to ask yourself what are you trying to convey to the viewer, and that's stuck in my mind ever since I read that. And every time I take a picture, that thought goes through my mind. What am I trying to convey in this picture? And that, I think, has helped my photography probably more than anything else. It's just that one line in the book.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there are a lot of amazing top level, Christy Odom, Paul Nicklin, Morgenheim, particularly, that have over the years been amazing advocates for wildlife and their storytelling capabilities in their photos, are just, there's some of favorite people I follow that I've learned from. But yeah, they have that gift and talent to be able to do that.
So I've got a question for both of you. What would you consider to be your photographic style? For example, with wildlife photography, do you specifically try to capture the like the behaviors of the animals, or their eyes, or close-ups, or something else? And kind of the same with, I guess, Western lifestyle photography. What do you try to capture when you take those images?
Well, I think for us, I think what we do that's a little bit different than a lot of people is we try to make um, something worth hanging on a wall for these, especially our young competitors. A lot of these youth rodeos and even the college rodeos, these kids aren't going to do it past that. Um, I rodeoed for a living for 7 years, and I have two pictures, and it's another thing that kind of motivates me because, like I said, I'm 50, and I wish I had more now, um, to give them some good memories of this time in their life when their body's young and they're out chasing the dream, and they're all chasing the dream. Truth is, not very many of them will see it much past that. Kind of like any sport, but to be able to capture the essence, we try to make it kind of a new look, but with a throwback to the older times, especially in the Western lifestyle. To kind of, I use the term old timey a lot, kind of old timey, but with a modern twist.
And I've always struggled with that. As you get into your fifth and sixth year, you wonder, well, will people recognize my photos? What is my style? And I don't know that I can really describe it other than I really concentrate on storytelling or capturing the environments because it's so important. My husband says, "Well, you definitely have a style. I can, pick out your picture in a group of 10." But he's closer to it and he knows, a lot of the places I've seen and what I'm looking at when I shoot. But I don't know. I think it develops for an artist, and I'm sure some of the, longer term photographers would tell you the same thing. You don't want to be stale, right? So you don't want to put out the same photos over, although some people do, and that's successful for them. That's great. But uh, in my mind, I want to evolve. I want to get better in certain areas. I know this year I'm concentrating on getting into the water. So I'm shooting flat water shots, especially for the wading birds. I bought waders and I've got a kayak now. And so I'm hoping to get some of those closer shots, which I haven't done before, which I've always admired. because it really gives you insight into the life of these amazing migratory birds. Um, and so I don't know. I'm probably not the best one to answer, kind of analyze that question, but I think if somebody were to ask me what my goal would be in my style, it would be that unique storytelling perspective to try to get as much of the story in a shot that's vibrant, true to what I see, with a little bit of artistic interpretation.
So, how do you deal with the business aspect of photography?
So for us, so rodeo's very much an event style photography. One thing I think that changes with rodeo is it's very emotional for the contestants, but it's very short lived emotion, because if you don't get the photos in front of them within 2 or 3 days, they're already thinking about where they're headed to the next rodeo. So you want to capture it as quick as possible. So we have a team. We'll show up to a rodeo. We're uploading, running cards back and forth per event, so we can, our goal is that by the time they're driving home, they can be looking at their pictures right then and there. Like I said, because if you don't catch them quick enough, they're already thinking about where they're going to next, and they kind of put that in the rearview mirror, so to speak.
Well, for me, I have a business background. I went and got an MBA about, gosh, it's been 10 years now, but I had an undergrad in communications and I went and got an MBA. Now my background is in business, all kinds. I've managed an Eddie Bauer retail store. I had my own health insurance company. I've worked in HR, the last couple of jobs I had, and then I worked for hospice industry in marketing. So it's kind of all over the place, but it's given me a good perspective, kind of a holistic view, macro instead of micro. But I just, my emphasis in the business aspect of photography has always been relationships, because no matter how technology improves or advances, relationships are still going to drive anything you want to do, sell, advocate for, etc. And so in business, to me, relationships are everything. I'm actually in negotiations right now. I did my first snow coach tour in Yellowstone this last winter with a business partner, and I tried to start my own tour company. It's a very heavy lift to do that. Unless you're a top tier influencer and everybody follows you and they want to go with you, it's very difficult to do. The industry's getting saturated. It's really had a lot of players come in the last couple of years. So I'm kind of talking right now with a larger firm to join, since my own business, I didn't really do, because I didn't put that much time and effort into it. But I think relationships, to me, as far as the foundation for business, have always been the most important. And every step I've taken in the different relationships that I've invested in has led me to a different place, to a different place, to a different place. And when somebody asks me about business, that's kind of the perspective that I give.
I couldn't agree more. And I think another thing that's worth mentioning is in diversifying how people are seeing it. So we're actually doing something pretty exciting. We're opening up a gallery, a fine art gallery, and a maker's market. We've been very fortunate through our travels that we meet some super talented painters and sculptors and leather workers and silversmiths and rawhide braiders, and they're artists of their own right in what they do. But most of the time, they're known in their 2 or 3 counties as the leather guy for that 2 or 3 counties. So we're actually opening a shop to put eyes on our photography and these other tremendous artists we've met along the road, to give them a place to show off their art. And so many of these folks are still working cowboys. They're living in bunkhouses, and they just don't have the outlet to show the world the talent that they have, and we're hoping to change that here in downtown Cheyenne.
Is there any advice that both of you can give before we wrap things up? Any advice you'd like to share?
Yeah, I would. There is absolutely one. I think it comes with the artistic bend that photographers have, but I think so often I see people territorial or I think the modern terms gatekeeping. I think if we just be kind to each other, and Shauna, I love what you're doing and bringing the next generation up, because there is so much that we can pass on to those younger than us that are going to carry the torch when we're done with it. So I think not only is it the right thing to do, I think we have a responsibility to help each other out, to be kind to each other, just be good to each other, and let your work speak for itself.
And I couldn't agree more with Michael. I think the world has enough darkness. I think when you can be a light to teach, a light to exemplify, a light to maintain good relationships with, you're only bettering the world. And, each one of us does not know how long we have on this earth. And, so thinking about what can I do, hindsight's 2020, right? I wish 20 years ago I would have thought and done things differently. But at least now I can make that change and I can teach others and share others what I've learned, what, I felt I could change, what might be more of an advantage to them. I have met some amazing, we talked about the internet and social media. I have met some of the most amazing people that will be, as long as I live, they will be great friends and have made great business partners and tour companions with on social media. But then I've met a couple of others, very few, who I'm not going to keep that relationship because it's a negative one. And there's too many good people out there to connect yourself with. And I think as you get older, you kind of get a little bit more selective too in the time and efforts you have and energies you expend in relationships and business efforts. So I think the more you can give back, the more you can share and be that light out there, the healthier we're all going to be, and it's going to be better for the industry.
That's a lot of the reason why I started a photography podcast, I think, is so that we can all just kind of join each other and share and be more of a community instead of competition with each other. Where can we find your photos, Michael?
So all social media, like I said, it's Michael Magill Photography or on everything. That's what it is. And then if you want to see some of the prints and the different things we do, they are at the Cowboy Emporium on Lincoln Way in Cheyenne.
And what about you, Shauna? Where can we find your work?
So by Hart Photography, BYHART Photography is kind of my handle on social media. I go by Shauna L. Hart on Facebook. I don't know about you guys. Michael's website's probably up to date and looks good, but I am the same as a lot of people. I have not invested time and effort and it's not up to date. I am going to have it redone, but it's byheartphotography.com. But I mainly do a lot of work and connections and posts and advocacy on Instagram. So it's By Hart Photography is my handle.
Okay. Yeah, I'm terrible about updating my website, so I'm with you on that one. Well, thank
John,
you.
I'm looking at your work now. It's absolutely beautiful.
Well, thank you. We'll have to check yours out and connect as well. Appreciate the time, Jeff. This has been a wonderful experience.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, both of you.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it.
All right, have a great day.
You too.
This was the Rocky Mountain Photography Show. Please visit us online at RockyMountainPhotoshow.com. Thank you for listening and have a great day.